So we just got the newest live letter for patch 7.2, and with it came quite a lot of changes to Black Mage. We kind of knew already that Black Mage would be getting buffs, but the way it's coming around is controversial to say the least. In the recent live letter, Yoshi P was showing off the first fight of the Arcadian Cruiserweight tier, and we got to see him play Black Mage partially in the encounter. So I'll just play the footage so you can see for yourself. So, what did we see in that video? There's a lot to take in. The first immediate thing that people started noticing is that there is no timer on Astral Fire anymore. So it looks like managing Enochian is no longer part of Black Mage gameplay. This is a huge design shift, as managing your Enochian timer by using Fire 4s followed by Paradox or Fire 1, and then finishing your Fire phase with more Fire 4s and Despair, has been a core gameplay element for the last several years. We can also see that he just used ley lines, and it's a 20-second buff rather than a 30-second buff. Tooltip confirmation later in the broadcast confirmed that the cast time reduction is still 15%. As we play through the opener, Yoshi P's GCDs seem extremely fast, and we see that his Fire 4 hardcast and ley lines has a cast time of about 1.47 seconds. This is extremely fast. So it looks like Fire 4 is now a faster cast. We'll get back to that as well. Going through the opener, Despair also seems to still be an instant cast as he uses it and it doesn't consume a triple cast charge. Mana Font as well looks like it stays at a 100-second cooldown. Yoshi P uses Flare Star, and we can see that the cast time is actually the same as the Ley Lines hasted Fire 4. So we can infer that Fire 4 and Flare Star have the same cast time under Ley Lines and therefore the same cast time overall. Later in the broadcast, Yoshi P actually hovers over the Flare Star tooltip, and we can see that it has been buffed from 400 potency to 500 potency, and its base cast time is 1.77 seconds at his GCD, meaning it has a base of 2.0 seconds. This is a huge buff. The non-standard gameplay that revolved around shorter lines and not using Flare Star is greatly nerfed from this Flare Star buff. Additionally, based on a Blizzard 4 tooltip shown later in the broadcast, and the fact that Blizzard 4 and Fire 4 have historically always shared the same raw potency, it can be inferred that Fire 4 was also nerfed to 300 potency to compensate for the reduced cast time. Of note, 2 seconds base cast time is not enough to weave after the cast. It's similar to White Mage's Medica, you will still clip a little bit if you try and weave after that. But on reducing the spell cast duration, I think this is a move towards homogenization to be like Pictomancer. I think part of the allure to Black Mage, at least for me, is that you have long cast times and can act like a turret. So I'm a little disappointed that they're going in this direction. Speaking of time, we can actually look at Yoshi P's buff bar and see another interesting thing. There is no longer a timer on the Thunderhead and Firestarter buffs, meaning they will stay on you perpetually. I actually really like this for Thunderhead, but I still think it's buff bloat and they can just get rid of it and let you dot whenever you want. I'm not really sure why they are maintaining this buff. We can also see Yoshi P transposed to Umbral Ice and cast Blizzard 4, which of course is also a faster cast. The 2500 MP gain from casting Blizzard 4 and Umbral Ice 1 stays, but you can also see that he uses Paradox in Umbral Ice 1 and it doesn't give a stack of Umbral Ice. He stays in Umbral Ice 1. It stands to reason that it will behave a similar way in Astral Fire, but we don't know for sure. So yeah, a lot of changes to go through. Firstly, no Astral Fire or Umbral Ice timers. Managing the Umbral Ice and Astral Fire timer is a core part of Black Mage, but I can see how it can be frustrating for new players. By making the cast faster though, I feel like it kind of removes the need for the timer quite a bit, so maybe that's why they got rid of it. But I'm not 100% sure. I'm interested in what you guys think the reason why they removed the Enochian timer is, so let me know in the comments. Also, with ley lines being a 20-second duration now, I'm thinking Retrace might also have a shorter cooldown, but I don't think Yoshi P used it during the live letter, so we'll have to wait for the patch notes to confirm. One big change as a result of the reduced cast time of Fire 4 and Flare Star is that you no longer have a damage benefit from instant casting these spells. Previously, with the cast time of 2.8 seconds and 3 seconds respectively, when you instant cast these spells, they went to 2.5 seconds each, so you would actually be saving time and therefore gaining DPS. But now, since the cast is lower than the recast, you aren't gaining any more time. Instant casting these spells will simply be for movement. Slide casting will also be a lot easier with the updated casting times, making movement even easier than before. My thought is that Square Enix thinks that the long cast times and potentially dropping Enochian were discouraging players from picking up the job, so they lowered the barrier to entry by lowering the cast times and got rid of the timer as a way to increase popularity of the job. Personally, I like the long cast times, but let me know what you think in the comments on this. It's definitely a divisive change. If I'm being honest, I don't think the Enochian timer change is a huge deal for seasoned Black Mage players, since managing the timer was second nature for a lot of us and rarely, if ever, dropped. This can actually potentially be a good change for moments where you go down for the count, like in Ultimates. Rather than transposing into Ice and having to Umbral Soul to get to max mana, if you're in the middle of a fire phase, you can just stop where you are and start the next phase with whatever mana you have left over. Another thing coming out of the Enochian timer removal is I think they're going to buff Paradox to be stronger than Fire 4. Right now, Fire 4 is 320 times 1.8 equals 576 potency in Astral Fire 3, and Paradox is 520 potency. With soft confirmation that Fire 4 is now 300 potency based on the Blizzard 4 tooltip, Fire 4 will be 520 potency in Astral Fire 3, and it seems weird for Fire 4 and Paradox to be the same potency. So I believe they're going to buff Paradox, so the net result will be Paradox being a gain over Fire 4. Now let's talk about Thunderhead. I like the no timer on Thunderhead, but I've also been an advocate for Thunderhead to be removed. I still think I'd prefer that they just let us cast Thunder whenever we want, and just get rid of the buff entirely. On Firestarter proc length, I honestly feel a little bit indifferent about it, but there were moments if you were doing really long sequences and spending a lot of Xenos that you would lose your proc, so I guess this just helps alleviate situations like that. Now, one of the interesting changes that they did is not having Paradox give a stack of Umbral Ice. They didn't show it in the live letter, but I assume it's a similar case for giving a stack of Astral Fire as well. That is, if Paradox is used in Astral Fire 1, will it keep you in Astral Fire 1 and not take you to Astral Fire 2? This actually has implications on quite a bit of non-standard Black Mage gameplay. For example, there were lines that took advantage of Paradox in Astral Fire 1, taking you to Astral Fire 2 to use a Fire 3 proc, or a Despair, at an increased potency. If Paradox does not take you to Astral Fire 2, this reduces the value of those transpose lines considerably. Also, since you don't get a stack in Umbral Ice anymore, the non-standard line with Swiftcast Blizzard 3 is now not possible since you don't get enough mana to finish the fire phase. This also means that the recovery line where you emergency transpose into Umbral Ice 1, then use Paradox to take you to Umbral Ice 2, then Blizzard 1 to get to Umbral Ice 3, and then using Blizzard 4, doesn't work anymore. Once we all have a chance to run through the numbers, we'll probably figure out what options there are for non-standard, or what's left of it anyways. Finally, some additional tooltips were hovered by Yoshi P. Xenoglossy was confirmed to have 890 potency, which is a 10 potency buff. Foul as well was accidentally hovered over, showing that it's now 600 potency with a 25% fall off rather than a 60% fall off, meaning it is now a 2 target gain over Xenoglossy. Fire 3 was also confirmed to be 290 potency, which is a 10 potency buff, and it stands to reason that Blizzard 3 as well is also 290 potency. Now, we definitely need to see the official numbers. For example, this build that the live letter was on could have been an old build and maybe the potencies aren't up to date. Maybe there's changes to Enochian's multiplier, or the Astral Fire multiplier. If not, overall this is probably going to be a pretty big buff for Black Mage, but a big shift in feel and gameplay. Personally, I'm disappointed with the direction they're moving in, as I would much rather keep the old long cast turret playstyle with potency modifications. So essentially an enhanced version of 7.1 Black Mage. For example, I like the idea of ley lines being 20 seconds because it fits more with burst. They could have expanded on that and made ley lines 20 seconds but a faster haste buff. They could have added just more potency on things to keep it on par with Pictomancer. But I wasn't expecting this level of change, and I don't think a lot of people were. It's almost bordering on a rework of the core job fantasy. I'm not really sure where they're going to take Black Mage in the future patches in Dawntrail, but in my opinion, it seems like they're on track for a full rework in patch 8.0. Let me know in the comments what you think about the changes and the future of Black Mage. Thanks for watching.